What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So Nintendo of America put out a ton of details with the NPD talking about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Switch sales, and it looks like those Smash Bros. Sales did help propel Switch sales, as we kind of assumed they would, but Smash, I think, is literally smashing people's expectations for what it could do as a game just in the US. We're going to be going over that because that kind of spells out with what we've seen in Japan for some ridiculous sales that we're going to hear about sometime soon. Again, I would assume we'd get a full round number for worldwide sales, but we're going to talk about that. We also got to talk about Nintendo actually going to court in Europe, well, over some interesting eShop practices that we're kind of having issues with kind of across the board, but we're going to have to go into all of that as well. As always, guys, enjoy these videos. Do hit the like button. It does help out. We're going to start with quick news, and we're going to start with Fallout 76, because why not? Unfortunately, there's not much good to ever say about Fallout 76, and it continues to get worse with that canvas bag being replaced for nylon bag situation. Remember, the canvas bag was swapped with a nylon bag before it was sent out. Then they backpedaled. You can get your canvas bag, just get in contact with us, which a lot of people did, and they've received some interesting messages back. One of which seems to point to it taking 4 to 6 months to get the canvas bag delivered, because apparently they have to manufacture it and then ship it to you. In 4 to 6 months, I don't even know if Fallout 76 is going to be relevant anymore based on the declining player base that we keep hearing about. And we kind of know how many people have even played it on the PlayStation 4, for example, and it's not a lot. So based on the current trajectory of this game, by the time those canvas bags get to people, they might not even care. Now, there's also a good chance that this is like the absolute worst case scenario that they're telling people, and maybe they get delivered sooner. But at this point in time, it sounds like canvas bag replacements are going to take actual months, up to half a year, to get to people. So good job, Bethesda. You're really on a roll. Also, if you've been following the channel for any period of time, you probably heard me talk about Skate, specifically the series Skate 1, 2, and 3 that's been out on the 360, the PS3, and my want and need at this point for Skate 4 and EA's, well, lack of determination to even hint or release it. So I, of course, as many others, have turned to other skateboarding games, and one that is actually releasing today in early access on Steam is called Skater XL, and it is a simulation-based skateboarding game that they tout has intuitive controls and real-life locations. And based on the trailer, it looks interesting. I'm going to try this out. I reached out to them to see if they wanted to provide an early access copy of it to me so we can play it here on the channel, and I can give you guys my honest thoughts. Now, here's the thing. The developers behind it, Easy Day Studios, actually made Skater, which was a mobile game, and now apparently they're shifting their attention to PC and Steam with early access. So I don't know how good or bad this is going to be, but I will try it out because I am looking for another more current skateboarding game. Fortunately, Skate 3 is backwards compatible on the Xbox One, so that's basically what I have to play at this point. So I'll check it out at least just to see if there's just something else to play in terms of skateboarding, because EA is not giving us Skate 4 from what I could tell. Also, Chocobo Mystery Dungeon Everybody did get a release date for Japan specifically. Remember, it's coming out on the Switch and the PS4. Nothing here or anywhere else in the world but Japan. That's coming from a leaked image from Famitsu that seems to point to a March 20th release date for that game. So that is the first release date we're hearing about specifically for Final Fantasy games on the Switch, as we assume that something maybe like a Final Fantasy VII could be released first out of all of them, since that's like the big iconic Final Fantasy. Could even be Final Fantasy 12, as we've seen some listings go up on Amazon for that, and the date keeps kind of jumping around the placeholder dates. But at least Chocobo Mystery Dungeon does have a date in Famitsu for Japan, and I'd assume that other parts of the world will follow right around that time, somewhere in, I assume, late March, maybe even early April. And with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start with Smash Bros. Ultimate sales in the US. We talked a lot about how we've seen in Japan the big numbers that it put up in its first 3 days. It was over 1.2 million. The Switch jumped to over 270,000 units sold. So yeah, Smash was pushing heavily in Japan, but the question has been, how is it doing in other parts of the world? We heard in the UK it was doing well, and then we're hearing now that in the US, in its first 11 days, it has sold over 3 million copies. That is just in the United States. To put that in some perspective for you, we've heard that God of War and Spider-Man worldwide within their first weeks, sold over 3 million copies. So think about that for a second. In the first 11 days, Smash has sold over 3 million copies just in the United States. We've already seen, we're going to see Media Create Anyway come out, which we assume is going to put it right around 1.5 to 1.6 million copies in Japan, 3 million in the US, and then we have to think of other parts of the world. This could be a 6 million unit seller already. And we still have the rest of Christmas to go, and then we go into January, because we're not going to actually hear about these numbers unless they tell us ahead of time, which they could. We're not going to hear about it until the end of January when they have to update their sites with all their investor stuff. But that is massive. It has now become the fastest selling Switch game as well, and that's even over Mario Odyssey that sold 9 million copies in its first month or so. So yeah, Smash is, it's rolling along pretty fast. And then we got more information in the NPDs about the Switch. So the Switch itself has sold 8.7 million units, and that actually puts it as the fastest selling hardware this generation. That is, of course, when you compare it to the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. If you start kind of going a little further back in the generations, the PS2 and the Wii still sold faster in the US, although, to be honest, looking at the charts that were put out, it appears that the Switch is actually closer than you think to the PS2 at this part in their both of their lifespans. So yeah, moving along pretty well there. We also heard that eShop titles have actually grown. So sales for eShop titles have grown 105% over 2017. Again, makes sense as there are more Switch units out there now than last year. And of course, the eShop has also grown with number of titles available. So that it seems obvious almost. Nintendo's hardware unit and dollar sales for 2018 are actually at their highest annual total since 2011. So yes, big things there for Nintendo. We also had other units such as Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu, which have already totaled over 2 million units. This is all just the United States. Mario Party at 1.4 million. And the best-selling game that we've seen appears to be Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 5 million units. That's over Zelda and Mario Odyssey. So yeah, Mario Kart, yeah, it's popular, even though it was technically a Wii U title that they pulled over as a port. Yeah, it's the most popular title for the Switch in the United States, at least for now. I actually see Smash passing that pretty quickly. If that's already at 3 million and we're still going through Christmas, and then obviously the week after Christmas is pretty busy, we'll see where it is at the end of December, because if Nintendo doesn't have anything for us right away, either before Christmas or right after Christmas, sometime in January, I would expect them to drop some big numbers for Smash as a press release, especially if they do have a direct of some kind planned. Worldwide sales, 10 to 11 million, and they're just going to drop it and just move on for their direct. So big numbers definitely for Smash, obviously pushing numbers along for the Switch, and we'll see if at this point, with all these new numbers coming out, if the Switch does hit that 20 million target, because a lot of analysts have started to kind of change their minds here. I'm sure Michael Pachter is kind of looking at that and saying, oh, wow, okay, maybe it will get to that 20 million mark, and it seems to be going a bit further than the 8 to 10 million I said it would do. So yeah, 20 million actually seems very, very likely and very possible right now, but it's going to come down to what Nintendo has in store for their fourth quarter, which is January to end of March, and that's, I think, where they can really seal it. If they have something big, New Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, yeah, that's actually a pretty popular game, but something new, something interesting to throw in there right at the last minute. I don't know if Fire Emblem will make it, but something else to drop in there. Next up, let's talk about Sony in the cloud, because Microsoft has been making a lot of headlines with their xCloud and the possibility of a streaming box coming next generation. But Sony's also working on their cloud work, of course, with PlayStation Now, which actually has a lot of games. They've even let you to start downloading games to kind of mirror more or less Game Pass. So they've been also working on that. I do think Microsoft is well equipped for it. I don't know if Sony is, but more and more job listings have been appearing that seems to show Sony ramping up for next generation with cloud compute. And here's another job listing that was spotted on Reddit, and you can see right away Sony Interactive Entertainment, Cloud Gaming, Engineering, and Infrastructure, and they are currently searching for a CBE staff software engineer. And it says, as a part of Sony Interactive Entertainment, the Cloud Gaming Engineer and Infrastructure team is leading the cloud gaming revolution, putting console-quality video games on any device. So, PlayStation Now is already on PC technically. You can play it on a laptop. Now, you're not able to download the games, you have to stream them, but I do think there is a mobile initiative happening right now. I think you're going to see Sony, and we're already hearing about Microsoft doing it, pushing these games to mobile because there are so many people with mobile devices right now. We see all of these companies going to mobile as well, releasing games. Even Nintendo's done it with several games now. Yeah, I don't be surprised if we do have a future ahead of us where games from Sony and Microsoft can both just be played on your cell phone with the controller attachment. I really don't think that's that far out of the realm of possibility, as there are people who just don't play on consoles or PC, and they really do just play on their cell phone. So if all of a sudden they look over and they see, oh, the new God of War's on there, the new Halo's on there, and I can just play on my cell phone, yeah, they might not care if it's buffered or if it looks a little funky on their cell phone screen. If they can play it and just buy the game straight up, they probably will do that. So I see why Sony is really ramping up for this, and the big quote there is on any device, not necessarily your PlayStation. Next up, let's talk about a game that we don't really know much about, but little hints keep getting dropped to us, and this might be the biggest hint that we've had because it actually is solid information about Halo Infinite. Again, a game we saw a teaser trailer for and then not much else. We just know that it is happening and they are developing it, but we don't really know what it is exactly. The name kind of implies that it's gonna be different, I guess. It's gonna be, we were thinking open world, and we might actually be onto something there after a tweet and a response was put out saying, the snow in our Xmas card of the E3 scene is temporary. The water will be varied. Natural landscapes will feature prominently. We know which ring it is. Exploration will be rewarded. Corn Dogs Please Mustard. That's Frank O'Connor from 343. Of course, the company working on this right now with Halo Infinite. We don't know if it's 2019 game. We don't know if it's 2020 game. We don't even know if this is an Xbox One game, to be honest. We know it's on a new engine. And it makes me wonder if this will break from the tradition of what Halo's campaign has usually been, which is level-based, linear. This is saying exploration. This is talking about the snow being temporary, maybe implying seasonal changes, maybe depending on where you are, or maybe time of day change. This very well could be an open world Halo game with exploration being rewarded. I like the idea of something different with Halo, as yes, it has been the same style, straight up. You go through the story level by level and then you go and play the multiplayer. But what if the single player actually was just different and interesting to the point where maybe that includes some multiplayer components? Maybe there is online co-op where you do run through a big open world, again, not necessarily level by level, and you go off and you complete tasks and quests or missions, and there is a reason to explore. This is really interesting, but again, Halo Infinite, we don't know much about it, but I am getting really excited for the idea of something different in the Halo universe. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Nintendo going to court in Europe over their eShop practices. And there's one in particular that has kind of bothered me about console creators or console manufacturers now, specifically the companies behind them, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft. Microsoft's been actually a little bit better here about refunds on digital games. Steam is actually really good about it. You can generally get a refund on Steam even if you get the game and you've played it for an hour and there's something wrong with it, or it's broken, or it doesn't work on your computer. You can get a refund for it without even having to talk to people most times. However, with Nintendo, it's interesting to note that if you pre-order a game and then you preload it, or even if you just pre-order it without doing that, that you can't actually cancel and refund your order. Well, in Germany, it seems that they are taking action against this, actually bringing legal action to Nintendo's doorstep. This is the German Consumer Protection Authority that is arguing just that, hey, if you pre-order a game, you should be able to get your money back if, say, you accidentally ordered it, or if you just don't want the game anymore and you do this well before it comes out. Nintendo seems to be citing an Article 16 of European Consumer Law Directive in defense, which says it doesn't have to allow cancellation if the performance has begun with the consumer's prior express consent and with the acknowledgement that he will lose his right of withdrawal once the contract has been fully performed by the trader. The only issue here is I don't know if you can really argue that if, well, you don't have the game yet, you've just pre-ordered it, and maybe you haven't even preloaded it. Now, I also don't really understand why people technically pre-order these digital games well in advance, since you don't usually sell out of digital games. Although I get the idea of preloading, but if you think it's going to take 24 hours to download it, why don't you just pre-order it 2 days in advance rather than a month in advance? Games like Kingdom Hearts can already be preloaded on the Xbox, but like, why? It's what, 40 or 50 gigabytes? I mean, just do it 2 days before or something, since you know you're getting it, you know your finances are in order if you're already going to buy it later on, right, and play it. I don't know why you're pre-ordering these things months and months in advance, but maybe someone can let me in on their thought process with that. I know there are at times some sort of incentive, but I don't know if Nintendo has a case here. I don't think they do, and I think it should change anyway because it benefits us, the consumer, to be able to refund a possible mistake when you purchase something that's even a preload, or maybe you just can't afford it and you bought it and something comes up. Anyway, I think you should be able to cancel and return. I think you should be able to do this for games that are already out that you've played for an hour. I think Steam has it right here, and I hope Nintendo changes it, and if this has to force their hand, then that's the way it is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's Smash's massive debut sales in the US that we're hearing about now, the Switch chugging along, rolling towards that 20 million in the fiscal year. I think they're going to make it. I really do. I think this is it. I think Smash, even went above their expectations. I know it went above a lot of people's expectations. And let me know about this whole thing with the eShop and canceling and getting refunds and Nintendo not allowing that. Do you think they should? And why do you pre-order a digital release months in advance? I'm curious about that as well. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.